Power and I'm an inspector with the Health and Safety Authority, and I specialise in the area of ergonomics and manual handling in the workplace. My key message would be that injury due to high-risk manual handling has significant human and financial cost to small business, and that there are things that can be done to manage it in the workplace by looking at better ways of working. If there were 3 points I'd like to summarise today in terms of the presentation, they would be that, first and foremost, injury due to work activities with high-risk manual handling has significant human and financial costs. That we need to recognise the potential hazard and plan how to manage it. The ultimate objective would be to look at better ways of working, developing them with less high-risk manual handling. The types of systems that we could look at are the use of mechanical aids, new systems that work with better planning or reorganisation of how we do the work activity, and provision of training to staff. In terms of manual handling, there are 4 key constituents that are important. First and foremost, if we look at the graphic, we can see that there's a person involved in having to lift a barrel weighing 80 kgs. So the second constituent would be the load that has to be handled, which is the barrel. The activity is primarily trying to maneuver or lift this heavy load, and the environment is the area where the activity is being carried out, in this case a warehouse. So what can we do? What should we do? Well, first of all, we need to recognise that there is a potential hazard and plan how we can manage it. In order to do that, we first and foremost have to understand what kind of work activity is being carried out and collect the relevant information through consulting and talking to the people that do the work currently. And from that then we can recognise the potential risk factors or potential for harm. So again, if we look at the work activity of lifting a barrel, we can see clearly that there are a number of risk factors in this case. The work activity is too strenuous in that trying to lift an 80 kilo load is extremely difficult. The load is very difficult to grasp, it is very heavy, and it is too large. So from that we can recognise that there are risk factors that need to be addressed. So what we need to do now is look at developing appropriate control measures or improvements and developing better ways of working with less high-risk manual handling. And in this situation, we've come up with a solution where the person uses a mechanical aid to transfer the barrel from the warehouse area to another area in the workplace. And another example of how this approach can help is if we look at this example of a porter working in a hotel setting, trying to lift bags of luggage in from the main lobby area. We can see that there's a better way of doing this by providing the porter with a handling aid so that they can transfer the baggage on this aid into the lift and up to the area where it's required. So just to, I suppose, summarise by way of a final example, the top tips for manual handling. First, understanding how the work activity is conducted and collecting information. And if we see this example here, an employee is required to stack pallets to a height. This requires a significant amount of manual handling. So the second thing we have to do is recognise what the potential risk factors or potentials for harm are in terms of this work activity. So if we look at the illustration, we can see that the pallets are very heavy, they're very large, and they're difficult to grasp. It's a highly repetitive work activity which requires repetitive bending and twisting. And as a result of that, another aspect is that the pallets have to be lifted to an unsafe height. So from that we can see that there are a number of risk factors which need to be addressed. So we then need to look at developing appropriate control measures or improvements. We can do this by talking to those who do the job, look at what alternative ways of doing the job we can put in place. For example, can we avoid the handling, and record our findings. So in this example we can see from the illustration what they've done is they've introduced a team lift where 2 people handle the pallet. They've reduced the height of where the pallets are stored, and they brought in the use of a pallet truck to transfer the pallets to the area of work. My call to action for small business is to take time to understand the work activities that take place in your workplace. Talk to those that do the work. Identify areas for improvement which will result in better ways of working with less high-risk manual handling.